Well, I think primarily the seeker movement, which some people might be unaware of, started good and ended badly in terms of its effect. I don't really think that's even debated much. I think even the beginners of the starters of that movement understand that now and are trying to shift some things back. But the seeker movement began with a consumer mindset in the suburbs. And quite frankly, I've done research here, and the seeker movement, church growth movement, doesn't work except in the suburbs. Doesn't work in the rural, doesn't work in the urban, because its message is packaged in such a way to reach affluent, primarily white, up and coming suburbanite. And there are areas of self improvement that they want in their own lives. There are possessions that they want. They kind of live that way. And so the seeker movement sought to adapt its message to attract that person, to draw them into the church, to eventually earn the right to preach the gospel to them. So the seeker movement's messages were kind of practical, kind of moral, principles about life and marriage and all these things that young suburbanites needed to know, raising kids and all those kind of things. But it never really got around to the cross. Kind of did, but the gospel became an addendum. It became an attachment. Like the idea eventually became that if you want to improve your life, add this to it, and then it'll accelerate the improvement. Well, that has left, quite frankly, a lot of people who've heard about Jesus, who've heard about the gospel, who know about church, who know the Bible, but who've never actually heard the declaration of the truth that we are, in our own strength, unsavable, wretched sinners, and God, in his grace, through the incarnation of Jesus Christ, atoned for our sins, and by the resurrection proved the verification of his acceptance of the sacrifice. That message didn't really find its way into the seeker movement, because that would, I think, jettison the whole program of getting. Now, Alex, honestly, bringing unbelievers into the church isn't a bad thing. I invite my unsaved friends all the time. Having a heart for the lost is obviously a good thing. This is what the seeker movement got right. Having cool PowerPoint is also not a bad thing. Won't send you to hell. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having efficient ministry. But there are a lot of people out there who are under the impression, and this is at the heart of the book, they are under the impression that God put his son to death so that we could have a happy and contented life on this earth. And I'm not a hall monitor here. I mean, I want people to be happy and contented and optimistic, but that is just not the case, because in history, the history of the Christian church, the majority of people outside of the West, America, who came to faith suffered greatly as a result. This is why the seeker movement will never work in a Muslim country or a third world country, because that person is listening to us talk about happiness and all these things that God can do and give us more purpose and clarity in our life, and they're just wondering where their next meal is coming from. I mean, it's that simple. So here in the suburbs, it's left a pretty ripe, and I'm excited about this, I'm not negative about it, mission field, because people know the language, and I get to really begin to dialogue with them about what they think they were saved from and what the object of their faith actually is. So as the seeker movement and the church growth movement are kind of subsiding, and you see this happening and people moving into smaller contexts, more authentic worship contexts, a lot of the people that are moving over into the more intimate places are people who are discovering that they've never heard this before. I have this experience all the time. So that's the idea. The mission field is kind of wide under harvest out here, and we're training our own people in our own congregation as if we were sending them to Haiti, and kind of contextualizing them culturally. Here are the people, and here's what they think, and here's what you're going to hear, and they know the Bible already, and they're typically moral people. But you got to get behind that. So that's the idea.